Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and after I've gotten some time to sit down and watch the tape, even though I've already had all of these notes ready and everything well before I'm recording this video, now we can finally break down why the Washington Commanders drafted safety Dominique Hampton, 161st overall in the 5th round. This guy has elite potential. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his team fit, scheme fit, was his best role at the NFL level, because what he was doing in college, he may not necessarily be doing at the NFL level. I'm going to let you know now that a position switch would definitely benefit this guy. We're going to dive into that. Also, at the end of the video, do we still need to sign all-pro safety Justin Simmons? Are we still in need of his services? We're going to dive into Dominique Hampton's strengths, weaknesses. I give my comp to all of these draft pick breakdowns that I'm doing, so make sure you stay tuned. We're about to dive into all of that, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned, because I'm gonna update y'all and do individual breakdowns for every single Washington Commander draft pick of this 2024 class. So even though I did John Baptiste already, then I went and did all of the undrafted free agents, now we're working our way back up, starting with Dominique Hampton all the way up to Johnny Newton, because I already did Jayden Daniels, of course, as well. Make sure you follow all of the social medias, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Really appreciate y'all. And I'm also going to be doing film sessions for every draft pick and every notable undrafted free agent as well. So everybody that's very notable that we brought in over the past week, I will be doing 2 videos each for everybody at minimum, because you know Jayden Daniels is going to get multiple film sessions. We have multiple points to prove with him. So let's go ahead and dive into this video now. We're getting ahead of ourselves, so let's go ahead, man, and let's get it. Adam. All right, and just to let y'all know, with every draft pick that we're going to break down, I'm coming with my comp immediately off rip so that you can kind of have an idea of how I view this player while we're doing his breakdown. We're going to take a look at, of course, what I have to say, like weaknesses, strengths, what his projection is this a steal as far as where we got him in the draft, but we're also going to take a look at some trustworthy sources and how they feel about him as far as like his weaknesses, strengths, and just his overall breakdown and things like that. And I just want you, while we're following through all of this, when we're breaking down his team fit, when we're breaking down everything about him, just know that my comp for him is basically a more athletic Deion Jones. But let me emphasize, as a ceiling, not as necessarily as like a super realistic, this is what I expect comp, or like this is his floor comp, like he's just destined to be this comp. But I'm saying as a ceiling. I'm not necessarily expecting him to become Deion Jones, like expecting it in general, but I'm especially not expecting it year one. So first of all, we already have several guys that play the star position ahead of him on the depth chart right now. So he may not even get enough opportunities to show that he can be that guy year one. But again, Deion Jones, hybrid safety linebacker. Y'all probably know it better as like the Buffalo nickel. As a Georgia Bulldog fan, I've been calling it star forever. That's just what we've been calling it. Ron Rivera brought the Buffalo nickel here, and I noticed that I believe it was Adam Peters that also mentioned somebody playing star specifically. So we're about to transition to that soon. So now I can completely get rid of Buffalo nickel out of my whole vocabulary. I could just say star for both of my favorite teams now, which is nice. But this guy is a guy that can play in the box, make plays against the run, and cover tight ends. And also, let's take a look at his raw athletic score, which is why I say he's a more athletic Deion Jones. Look at the size, elite. Look at the explosion. A 39-inch vertical, that's great explosion. He's very explosive. You can even see it on tape. So I would go, I think his relative athletic score should be even higher than this, because I feel like his explosion shows off better in tape. And speed-wise, he ran a 4.51. The problem is, as you notice on the screen, they have him labeled as a free safety. So yeah, 4.51 is, you know, great for anybody, before a free safety is not necessarily as great. But if you're projecting him to be like a strong safety, star, hybrid linebacker, 4.51 is elite. So his 20-yard split and his 10-yard split would all raise in color and also raise his relative athletic score if you do that. So even though he was a free safety in college, like I said, he projects better as like a hybrid linebacker star position, literally a faster, more athletic Deion Jones. And then if you're looking at the agility, that's great as well. But again, I think all of his numbers would drastically improve his relative athletic score if you change him from free safety to strong safety. Maybe he'll go down a little bit in size, but when it goes to explosion, speed, and agility, it would definitely raise his numbers. And more credit to his athleticism, after the Dominique pick, 161st overall, Math Bomb tweeted, like literally the relative athletic score guy. This is his baby. He tweeted, the Commanders have taken the top relative athletic score for their class, jumping the Dolphins, Chiefs, and Eagles, who come next. So that was immediately after the Dominique pick. And then after we made our final 2 draft picks as well and finished out our class, Math Bomb then tweeted and ranked all of the top relative athletic scores averages across the NFL. We finished with the highest average, which means that we had the most athletic draft class out of the entire NFL. But he did note, though, that Washington had 2 players who didn't test, in Johnny Newton and Jayden Daniels. But he also mentioned that if they had, they likely would have had an even higher average relative athletic score. So not only do we already have the most athletic draft class in the NFL, but Math Bomb himself is even saying that based on what you see on tape, and just based on how they look and things like that, you could assume that Johnny Newton and Jayden Daniels would have, if anything, even helped our average relative athletic score go up even higher, which would separate us as the most athletic draft class by even more than we already are. He also noted the second rounder, Mike Sanverstill, had the worst relative athletic score at an 8.45, which says a lot about their approach this year. And like I already talked about a couple of videos ago, literally, if he was just 3 inches taller, he easily would have been in the 9-point-somethings because he had elite grades at speed, agility, and things like that. It was literally just the size holding him back as far as his overall score. But then again, if he were 3 inches taller, we would have never have had a chance to get him in the second round. He's a top 20 talent in this draft easily if he's just not so short. That's literally it. And that's why I'm happy that he's short, because we would have never have gotten him if he were any taller. We would have ever had any chance, and I don't think that's going to affect his play at all. I feel like a lot of teams overthought it. So I'm very happy. And speaking of guys that we're lucky to get, you'll see later on in this video when I break down the reason why I felt like Dominique was also a steal. We'll get there though. So just to let you know, again, we drafted the most athletic class out of the entire NFL. And that's perfect because we signed the most free agents in this offseason. So we brought in a bunch of dependable starters, depth players, that can basically fill in holes. And then you go to the draft and draft guys with the highest ceilings and the most talent. I mean, and again, you pay your coaches millions of dollars to develop and utilize that talent in the best way possible. What am I paying you millions of dollars for if I'm just going to keep drafting high floor guys that already come in as polished players coming into the NFL? No, you spend free agency to plug in holes, make sure you're decent at least everywhere. You don't have any real just glaring needs. The only arguably glaring need that we may have right now is left tackle, but even there, we still have veterans there when in doubt. It's not like we have guys that are just unplayable. We made sure through free agency, every little hole was we at least put a bandage on it at the very least. We're not leaking. And then that's why you're able to go into the draft and draft best player available and just go purely based off of talent. And again, you pay these guys millions of dollars, so get that talent out of them. What am I paying you for? Again, to me, that's the perfect strategy going into any offseason, and I'm glad that Adam Peters literally followed it to a T. I mean, I'm not saying that I put Adam Peters on. I just feel like it's more so of like a great minds think alike thing. I was saying that's what we should do since months ago, and I'm so happy they actually went and did it. I'm even higher on Adam Peters now than I was when we first hired him, because he's doing everything that I not only thought he would do, but also hoped he would do. And I'm not gonna lie, being the best or the most of anything makes me very happy. The fact that we have the most athletic class out of the entire NFL, like we can hang our hat on that. Like while everybody else is somewhere in the middle of the pack in different ways, one thing about us, we were the most active team in free agency, number one, and we have the most athletic draft class in the NFL. I like the fact that we stick out. I really take pride in that. I know I'm going on a bunch of tangents outside of Dominique Hampton, but I just really wanted to point out the fact that really makes me smile. I'm very competitive, and the fact that we're the best or the most at anything, it just makes me very happy. And the fact that we did it once in free agency and the draft, I love it. At least pick something to be elite at rather than just being average or decent at a bunch of things. Make sure you walk away and you can hang your hat on the fact that you're at the least best at a couple of things. Instead of being a jack of all trades, how about we be a master of at least one or two? And so I'm really excited. I love what Adam Peters is doing just to continue that. But now back to Dominique after that long tangent about really nothing. But you know, I just get so excited. I just got to talk, man. And Dane Brugler himself had him ranked as the number 9 safety out of the entire draft. He said Hampton is undisciplined with his man coverage responsibilities, but he is an impressive size/speed athlete who diagnoses well from zone and is an excellent striker, explosive striker as a tackler. He projects as a team's third safety who can impact all 3 levels of the field and contribute as a gunner/special teams standout. Basically, worst case scenario. We'll get there later. Then you have Shane P. Hallam, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He's a draft analyst as well. He said that Dominique Hampton was his 14th safety, a little bit lower on him, but some of the traits that he gives as far as positives are actually really good traits. Good athlete with size, crashes the box with tenacity, will make wide receivers pay over the middle. I love that. And also comes with some ball skills, which is really hard to teach guys at the next level. That's one of those things that you can do as much coaching as you want to, but guys either do or just don't have ball skills, man. It just seems like something you develop younger, not necessarily when you get to the NFL level. And then also, I mean, if you really think about it, the way that we just described all of those traits, this is with him being a big safety. Does that not literally sound like a Dan Quinn pick? Perfect for the type of defense that he likes to run. Like literally Cam Chancellor from Seattle, the Legion of Boom, J-Ron Curse in Dallas, Deion Jones basically for the Falcons. So if you could point to any pick out of this entire draft that was probably Dan Quinn picking it himself, it is this guy right here. This is literally the type of player that not only is Dan Quinn great at bringing greatness out of and finding a way to put them in positions to succeed as much as possible, but this is like a very specific Dan Quinn thing. This is what he specializes in. Not every defensive coordinator or defensive-minded coach is like really known for utilizing big safeties the way that he does. There are some out there that do it. He's not the only one, but this is literally like Dan Quinn's thing. Also, Lance Zierlein of NFL Network had Dominique going in the 4th round with his draft and analysis. He said average game film has to be weighed against his traits and the potential of what he could do with pro coaching. Hampton is big, fast, and long, and defensive coordinators can work with that. I agree. He's more comfortable operating as a read and react high safety than in man coverage. He's willing in run support, but erratic angles to the tackle and below average body control can lead to poor positioning and excessive arm tackles. I did see that on tape. I remember seeing one play against USC where like a receiver, he's all the way like 30 yards back. The receiver just caught the ball basically out of the backfield or really close to the line of scrimmage. He has like all the yardage in the world, all of the time in the world to come in at the perfect angle. And he still underran it for some reason. And then the receiver kept going. And I know the Washington defense and everybody on the sideline was like, what happened there? Come on, dog. Like you had so much space to work with. You knew exactly just as long as you don't get beat deep when in doubt, just cut him off that way and let him work back in. But don't let him just beat you to he's already against the sideline just running straight. He has nowhere to go right, and he just undercut it for some reason and let him keep going. So that definitely showed on tape as well. Now, also, Hampton's traits and potential could sway a team to take him on day 3 and develop him into an average backup with core special teams value. Continuing Lance Zierlein's breakdown. And then you have the Owl on Twitter. He said he's a versatile, strong safety whose expertise playing 2 high, 1 high, and in the box and in the slot. He is excellent in zone, but struggles in man. Great at tackling and hits hard and plays all of special teams and projects as a good third safety with upside. So, I mean, a lot of positive traits to take from there. And also, I want to point out the fact, now moving to my part of this video where I'm doing the breakdown, he's coming off of his best season as far as his career goes. So basically his trajectory is pointing up. He's only getting better. I feel like he's barely scratched the surface. He came from career highs in ball production in 2023 with 2 interceptions and 7 pass breakups. Again, this is a guy that's only getting better and better. And you can see it when you watch his tape. He does a great job of using the speed to stay with receivers and then his length to punch the ball out of their hands or just straight up bat it down for forced incompletions. He has pretty good ball skills. But he did have a 67.4 coverage grade in 2023 2023 according to Pro Football Focus. So PFF doesn't necessarily like him as much as I do, but I'm still pretty high on him. Again, we're going to get why when we're talking about this position change from how he was at free safety. Now I see him as more of a box guy, which is why I comped him to a more athletic Deion Jones. But he also did play 6 years in college and only started 2. So that's a little concerning. That's a slight red flag. But ignoring his overall career, I like what I'm seeing. If you're just only watching this most recent season, you could definitely see him as like a guy that maybe he should have gone in the 4th round instead of the mid-5th. Plus, I see him as more of like a hybrid linebacker anyway, so his coverage is still important. Like, it still matters, but it's not as important as it was when he was playing free safety for Washington University. And to further back my point and projection of Dominique maybe moving into like a hybrid linebacker role, which I think he's destined to do, which is something he didn't necessarily do that much in coverage. He was more of a true free safety at Washington and was even more responsible for deep coverages a lot of the time, more than I think he's going to be at the NFL level. So agreeing with my projection, when assistant general manager Lance Newmark talked about him in his press conference after the draft, when he talked about all of the draft picks, it sounded like Dominique may be converted into a hybrid linebacker role, which again backs my point. And to further back my point even more, he had a relatively low coverage grade according to Pro Football Focus, but his 109 tackles in 2023 not only led the Washington University team, that's including linebackers, but also ranked 5th in the entire Pac-12. He was one of the Huskies' best defenders in the college football national championship as well, playing against Michigan. He recorded 10 stops and 1 pass breakup. Literally when you're listening to his stats, when you're looking at his athletic profile, his size, his speed, and everything like that, he literally is a box safety. He literally is the star position, a hybrid linebacker. It's crazy that Washington played him at free safety so long. Again, even just his stats. Relatively average, low coverage grade, but 5th in tackles out of the entire Pac-12 conference as a safety. Come on, dog. He should have been in the box way more often, which again makes sense trait-wise. But it is weird because even though Dominique is a really great athlete with a lot of upside, he's not a complete freak of nature, built in a lab type of guy like Jeremy Chinn, who's already projected to lead that role, specifically the star position, the hybrid linebacker. But then again, you can never have too many athletes. And while Dominique starts off as like a strong special teams contributor until he adapts to the NFL level defense and how fast the game is moving and things like that, you have Jeremy Chinn balling out like I think he will. Jeremy Chinn was one of my favorite free agent signings, like out of all of them, like literally top 3 easily for me. So the fact that I don't see Dominique starting anytime soon is not necessarily a knock on Dominique, is more so due to the fact that I'm just simply that high on Jeremy Chinn and him reaching his potential here in Washington and Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr.'s system. I'm just that high on him. I think he's our future star. Like, I think he's going to be elite at that. You can't teach his athleticism. So to me, it's a good problem to have, though. Better to have 2 good to great options at hybrid linebacker star position and struggle to figure out which one we like the most, or to struggle to get the one that's maybe a little bit less talented to get on the field as much as possible. I prefer to have that problem over having none. It's better to have 2 and figure out which one you want to play the most than to have 0 and try to figure out who's going to play it at all. Like, never going to complain about that. These are the problems that great teams have always had. This just may be a little new to us right now as far as being burgundy and gold fans. Because, like, wow, we have so many good players at the same position. What do we do? Definitely a first world problem at NFL standards. So I'm grateful to finally even have these types of problems. Shouts out to Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and those guys for bringing in so much talent to the point that we have those types of problems. And shouts out to the YouTube channel draft analyst Broshmo. He had Dominique ranked as his 8th best safety in the entire draft. And that's pretty high compared to where most people and organizations saw him just in general. I mean, again, somebody like we mentioned earlier had him like 14, somebody else had him 9th, and again, Broshmo had him 8th. And he also projected him to be a box safety / slot guy, which again goes back to my point in being the same mold as like a Jeremy Chinn. So that means you probably don't view him as an immediate starter when you really think about it. If Jeremy Chinn is already there as your projected starter, you draft this guy and you're like, okay, well, at the very least, he'll be able to contribute on special teams and he'll come off the bench. Maybe he'll be rotated in somewhere. But then again, how many 5th round picks are projected as starters just in general ever, no matter the position? But going back to Broshmo, he also compared him to Rayshon Jenkins as a comp. That's a very safe floor level comp in my opinion. Like, I mean, I'm not necessarily betting money on it, but I think if any coaching staff can get potentially Deion Jones out of Dominique, it's not only the coaching staff that coached him while like literally coached Deion Jones when Deion Jones was in his prime, and it's not only the coach that also coached Cam Chancellor and J-Ron Curse in the same role that he's trying to get him, that we're trying to project Dominique into, and had them balling out as well, but it's also the coaching staff that's full of defensive back developers. Do not forget that we also have Jason Simmons from the Raiders here as well. He has a really impressive track record as far as developing defensive back. So if a coaching staff exists out there that could turn Dominique into Deion Jones, it's this one. So I'm excited. Like, I'm already just a very optimistic person in general, but on top of that, we finally have an elite coaching staff, on paper at least. So a lot of these comps I will give for all of these draft picks that I'm breaking down, they're more than likely going to be ceiling comps, just to kind of give you an idea of what they could be. And even if they never reach their ultimate ceiling, which is, very likely, the odds are they will never do that. At least most of them won't. But at the very least, I'm very confident in this coaching staff to at the very least get way closer to their ceilings than their floors. So I definitely feel like, mostly because of this coaching staff, but also Dominique's talent as well, that he's way closer to being a Deion Jones than a Rayshawn Jenkins. But I guess time will tell, man. And after that big rant that I just went on, going back to Broshmo's YouTube channel real quick, because he had a couple of other things I wanted to point out. Last thing I wanted to point out was that when he said his strengths, he said for Dominique, impressive build with great speed, good change of direction ability, and solid tackler and hard hitter. And even weaknesses wise, he pointed out that he doesn't get his head turned around downfield, and I saw that a lot on tape as well. And he also included in Dominique's weaknesses that he's just simply better working downhill, which takes me to my next point. I am very confident that if Washington University did a better job of using his strengths more often and had him in a box safety role far more often, he more than likely would have not even made it to the 5th round, in my opinion. But I get it. You're trying to win. You're going on a national championship run, and he's probably your fastest and most athletic safety that you even have in your DB room. So even though he's not well nuanced at the free safety position, and that's just not his strong suit, they just kept asking him to do it for what I believe was only because he was just fast. But if they moved him down into the role that he will play at the NFL level, the hybrid linebacker star position, way sooner, and as far while he was still in college, at least this past season, he probably could have had a way better year and been way higher on people's draft boards. I think when a lot of people are evaluating him, they're noticing and pointing out a lot of his weaknesses that I feel like are a lot of things that he will not be asked to do at the NFL level. I mean, a lot of the weaknesses and red flags that people are noticing when they're watching his tape are things that come up when he's playing free safety, deep coverage, and things like that. Hopefully, you never have to worry about him ever having to really do that at the NFL level. So I feel like Washington, the university, played him out of position and really didn't do the best job they could have draft-wise for him. They were just doing whatever they could to try to win, and instead of prioritizing his draft stock, they prioritized trying to win, which I can't be mad at. But to me, that's probably the only reason we were able to even get him in the 5th round in the first place. So I firmly believe that we may have gotten a steal here. You can't tell me that if he were playing box safety this entire last season, he wouldn't have gone higher in the draft by at least a round. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that he's like a 1st or a 2nd rounder, anything like that. I'm not going that far, but I definitely believe that he wouldn't have made it to the 5th round. So in conclusion, I think we may have stolen one here. Shouts out to Washington University for doing us a favor with that by basically plummeting his draft stock and allowing us to get him later than we should have, and allowing us to not only get Jordan McGee, but then take Dominique Hampton later, rather than having to take Dominique probably with the pick that we got Jordan McGee with. So that shouts out to Washington. That's that Washington to Washington connection across the country. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate that. I'm sure Dominique was not happy about it, but it is what it is, man. Yeah, you'll get your good karma at the NFL level. Now you're going to a system with Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. and Jason Simmons in the secondary group as well. You'll be fine. And to further back my point even further, Daniel Jeremiah had Dominique ranked as his 97th best player in the entire draft. I think that's the highest I've seen anybody be on Dominique entering the draft, and even after the draft, after we got him, as far as how people have them on their big boards. And remember, we got him at pick 161. Daniel Jeremiah has him at 97. We got him at 161. So Daniel Jeremiah probably thinks that we just got a huge steal. I'm assuming that Daniel Jeremiah, with that ranking, sees the vision. He's probably projecting Dominique based on moving into the permanent star role at the next level and not necessarily looking at him as like a pure free safety, like the role he played in college, which I can't be mad at other draft analysts for just being like, okay, he played free safety in college. He was bad at that. That's why he's not high on my board. I feel like Daniel Jeremiah, or I'm just assuming if Daniel Jeremiah has him as one of his top 100 players out of the entire draft, that means that he's looking at his tape and being like, well, what would have happened if he would have just actually moved down to a hybrid linebacker role? I'm just assuming, because there's no way you have him as a top 100 player as a free safety. The tape doesn't show that. So shouts out to Daniel Jeremiah for having that vision. Daniel Jeremiah saw Dominique as basically like a late 3rd round pick, and again, we got him in the 5th round, so you can argue for that reason as well that he may have been a steal. And also, I feel like worst case scenario, he will at least be a great special teams player with all of that athleticism, hard-hitting ability, and sure tackling. That's like literally like the 3 main traits you need the most to be a great special teams player. So I easily see him making a 53-man roster, I'm not going to lie. Even if he doesn't get much better as soon as possible, I think his floor is a strong special teams contributor. And I mean, first of all, not every 5th round pick makes 53-man rosters. So that's why I wanted to make sure I address this, because some people may be even out there thinking he may not even make the final 53-man roster. I think that he will, because again, at the very least, I think he's at least going to be so strong at special teams that they can't deny him. And also, in his press conference after being drafted, Hampton said that he hoped he'd be drafted by Washington. That's really cool, man. He said because of Dan Quinn's system and the fact that it was appealing, and he said that he likes that he can be used in a hybrid safety linebacker role close to the line. So even he said it himself, please play me at the star hybrid linebacker role. Stop playing me at free safety like my college just did. But I love the fact, I absolutely love the fact, you know I love to hear that. The fact that he wanted Washington to draft him, it shows that we are building something real here. This continues the trend of momentum from the veteran free agents that all wanted to come here. Some of them even accepted less money to come here and be a part of the Washington Commanders. That shows that everybody will really accept out of like a lot of NFL fans, even some fans in our fan base. But you ask Cowboys, Eagles, Giants fans, and a lot of other people that don't really care about the Commanders, of course they're going to downplay us. But right now, football people and players see the vision that Adam Peters is putting together right now. We were a top free agency destination, arguably the top free agency destination, and you notice a theme that out of our draft class, Dominique was not the only one to point out the fact that he wanted to go to Washington for the scheme and the fit. Again, a lot of our veteran free agents said it, and also some of our other draft picks said the same exact thing. And I do not ever remember hearing people say that whenever we signed veteran free agents or drafted people in years prior with the previous regime. So I love that quote coming from Hampton right there. Dominique also said that he faced Jayden Daniels when he was at Arizona State. That's a really interesting connection, very noteworthy, very random. And at that time, Hampton was playing cornerback. So boy, Jayden Daniels was probably giving them the business. And of Daniels, Hampton said, quote, I thought he was extremely slippery and accurate with the football, unquote. And you know that he eventually just got more of those two things as he went to LSU and got better. And speaking of facing off, I think this is a really underrated storyline right here. That's going to be crazy when Dominique Hampton and Mike Sainristil see each other in person for the first time since that national championship. I'm expecting at least a little bit of trash talk going back and forth between them. More than likely, Mike Sainristil starting it, because I've heard that he is a trash talker and he's the team. His Michigan actually ended up winning the national championship. So I just think that that's a hilarious locker room situation right there. Of course, it's not going to be any real problems, but I could definitely see it coming. If I'm Mike Sainristil, I'm approaching it about him. I'm showing him my ring and everything. That's just the type of person I am. Now, before we get up out of here, secondary wise, I feel like the only problem right now is that where's the true free safety? Again, Dominique Hampton, when you look at him on most draft boards and most draft analysts, they have him labeled as a free safety. Even his raw athletic score is under free safety that everybody has out there. So we have so many box and nickel players. You have Quan Martin, even though I think he's moving to pure strong safety now, but that was like his expertise. He's basically going to now move into like a Cameron Cole role from last year, but just basically quicker, faster, more explosive, all of that. Just a higher ceiling Cameron Cole. I'm super excited about that. And then you also have Jeremy Chin, again, the alien. And then you also have Mike Sanders still at slot corner. You even have our 5th round pick linebacker, Jordan McGee, who is a coverage linebacker first and foremost right now until he develops into a better run stopper, more instinctual run stopper and things like that. And his breakdown is coming up next because, again, we're working backwards all the way back up to Johnny Newton. So my point is, who's our free safety? Yeah, you drafted Dominique Hampton, who is a free safety, but he's not going to be a free safety at the NFL level. At least I hope not. So who? Percy Butler, maybe Derek Forrest, who missed all of last season due to injury. Jeremy Reeves is a great special teams guy. Love him, all pro for a reason. But you don't necessarily want him starting at free safety for you. So does this mean that we still need to go out and sign all pro safety Justin Simmons? Is that still a real possibility? Because I'm telling you, we need free safety. Again, I'm high on Derek Forrest, but he's still working through some kinks, still relatively raw, and he's coming off of an injury-ridden season. And then Percy Butler, I like flashes, but he's too inconsistent. Who is our starting free safety right now? As high as I am on Derek Forrest, I'm not entirely too confident there as far as just going into week 1 assuming he's just starting free safety. Plus, it's a new system too. All of these guys have to get used to a new system, so that just already raises a bunch of question marks and red flags everywhere as well. But as far as Justin Simmons goes, like I already talked about even before the draft happened, again, we still need a true free safety in this room. And by the free agency moves that the Commanders made this offseason, point one, they clearly at least want to compete this year. At least be competitive playoff contender-wise. Maybe not even Super Bowl contender, but they definitely want to win. It may not be to the extent of like mortgaging the future for more immediate success, but they definitely want to at least compete for the playoffs in year 1 of our rebuild, which is why 2nd overall pick, you take the guy that's more pro-ready in Jayden Daniels than like a Drake May. Or even why it's already being reported that they prefer J.J. McCarthy over Drake May because he's more day 1 ready to play right now. So that also shows it. But then even outside of that, otherwise, why sign so many veteran free agents to 1-year contracts rather than throwing a bunch of young guys out there to try to accelerate their development by having them learn on the job with meaningful snaps in the regular season? Like literally every snap that a veteran free agent like a Bobby Wagner is taking and to improve our chances of winning, that's the goal. That's another snap of development you're taking away from a younger player behind them on the depth chart. And if we're being consistent with that logic, Justin Simmons immediately makes our defense way better. If we're not necessarily prioritizing giving these younger guys as many meaningful snaps as possible, we're more so trying to do a perfect balance of winning and letting these young guys ball out. I feel like bringing Justin Simmons in fits within that logic way too perfectly. Second, speaking of perfect, he's also the perfect fit for Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr.'s defense. Those two created and coached the NFL's best takeaway defense for the past 3 years in Dallas, and Justin Simmons leads the NFL in interceptions since being drafted in 2016. There's not a more perfect match than that as far as if Justin Simmons and his agent are looking around like, where's my best opportunity? Just off of that alone, based on need, like who needs a free safety and scheme fit, where could I go and ball out and potentially get like a bigger contract in 2025? Maybe I sign like a cheap 1-year deal with the NFL team this year. And then I ball out and I can get a big time contract in 2025 after I show teams what they are missing with me. What better fit than the Commanders, man? Honestly, Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr.'s system is perfect for Justin Simmons. Also, don't forget, Adam Peters drafted Justin Simmons when he was still one of Denver's top draft guys. So if Adam Peters loved Justin Simmons coming out of college, imagine how he feels about multiple all-pro selections later, Justin Simmons. So I'm pretty sure Adam Peters is at least interested as well. I'm assuming at least a phone call was made. I'm not necessarily saying that we will sign him, but it just makes too much sense. And then my 4th and final reason is that we have the second most cap space in the NFL. So even though I don't necessarily think that that's his primary factor, if it is at least one of his top factors, we're the best team to potentially pay him as much money as he wants to get. Again, the second most cap space in the NFL, only behind the New England Patriots, and the New England Patriots are way further away from winning right now than we are. So I'm pretty sure the New England Patriots aren't even on his radar as far as teams he wants to go to. When you're getting older in age and you're an elite player at the NFL level, you're more than likely looking for a team that you could at the very least compete and go on playoff runs with, even if they're not necessarily a Super Bowl contender. I'm not necessarily saying that he's only looking at the Chiefs, the Bills, and maybe even the Texans and things like that, but I am saying I feel like he's at least ignoring the New England Patriots. So out of the teams that even make a decent amount of sense for Justin Simmons, we have the most cap space available to give him if we want to sign him to a contract. So those are just the four main reasons why it makes too much sense. I love Dominique Hampton, but he's a hybrid safety, linebacker, star position role. We still need a free safety, in my opinion. Even as high as I am on Derek Forrest, still too many question marks there. I'm still uneasy about that position just going into week one, assuming that it's either Derek Forrest or Percy Butler starting for us as of today. Go ahead and get Justin Simmons. Even if you rotate Justin Simmons, he's getting a little bit older, you rotate him in and out with Derek Forrest. At least Justin Simmons brings a certain veteran presence and a certain floor to the position group, because we have veterans all over the place. But the defensive back group is easily our youngest group out of the entire team. The wide receiver group at least has Terry McLaurin, who's played at a high level. The linebacker group has Bobby Wagner. The defensive line group has Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. I mean, we just have veterans all up and down, all over the place on this entire roster. But for some reason, the DB group, especially the safety group, right now, Derek Forrest, I think, is the elder statesman right now. And again, still relatively raw, I love his talent, I love his potential, but he doesn't come with like a super high floor. And again, to repeat for like the fourth time, he's coming off of a year where he was injured the entire time. So who knows if he's even like fully himself, and he has to learn a new defense. Please bring me Justin Simmons, who's a perfect fit for what we need. I mean, the match made in heaven. He needs us, we need him. I don't know why that deal hasn't been done today. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned, because like I already told y'all several times, man, we're working on the entire draft class. And then after I wrap up everybody's individual videos, I will do a really long video breaking down my draft grade and reasoning for everybody. And I'm gonna like try to do, I'm gonna include my player comps again like I'm doing in these individual breakdowns, and then I'm also going to say like team fit, and I'm going to say who's a day one starter, who's more of a developmental guy, what's their role, how often will they play, and things like that. So when I'm doing my draft breakdown, it will include, like in my grade will be included where we got them in the draft, whether it was a reach or a steal, and as far as like projection, will they be able to contribute year one. That's going to all be a part of my calculations for these grades, so stay tuned for that. I really appreciate y'all. Make sure you do not leave this video out leaving a like, and also let me know in the comment section how you feel about Dominique Hampton. Are you higher on him or lower on him than I am? Did you come into this video lower on him, and then maybe I convinced you to be a little bit higher on him than you were before this video? Let me know all of that, man. I really appreciate y'all. I'm on my way with the next video tomorrow, maybe even late tonight / early tomorrow, like 3 in the morning, this type of thing. We'll see. Either way, stay tuned. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.